How old are you, sir?
How old are you, sir?
7 years old.
What is your
What is
specific
your specific country?
Brazil.
Sir, what
Sir, what your level of education?
Uh, 6 and 7. This is a second to this. Sorry. What the beginning of the high school is a second.
What is the name of
What is the name of the
institution you are
institution you are teaching?
Dom José Maria Pires School.
Okay, thank you for answering the first part of our question. Now let's proceed
Now let's proceed with the main questions for the first question.
First,
First,
what is
what is language acquisition for you and why?
I think is when I speak in English, I think we can open our minds, and I think is a great idea because especially when I study my main language is Portuguese, and I don't like that. And when I start to learn English, I think I can understand what's happening in the language, what's the parts we can understand and compare that structures.
Okay, thank you,
Okay,
sir.
thank you, sir.
Next question.
Next question.
What learning
And acquisition
have you used in teaching
second language?
Can you cite
Can you cite a real life situation?
I have a book, I think it's the Teach Knowledge Test course. They said about the CLIO model. CLIO is a content and language integrity learning. And in our school, we use that because we can use in all class, especially in my, because I use a lot of money. But in this CLIO course is very nice to teach and to learn more easily the second language.
Thank you, sir. For our third question, what are the acquisition barriers you have encountered in teaching English?
Sorry, can you repeat because it's
Sure, sir.
Sure, sir. What are the acquisition barriers you have encountered in teaching English?
variation about what?
Barriers.
Barriers in teaching English.
Okay. I think is about the different maths, especially games, and generally I use different forms like jigsaw methods, walk gallery, discussion, drama, and argue between the group.
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir, the next question.
How did you
How did you remove the barriers before, while, and after teaching English?
Can you recall that?
Can you recall that time?
Sir,
Sir, clear or will repeat?
Please repeat, please.
how did you
How did you remove the barriers before, while, and after teaching English?
Can you recall that?
Can you recall that time?
I started in 2018 in this school because before that I teach in a normal school. And just in 2018 I begin to learn to teaching there. Then I'm 4 years teaching English as second language.
Okay, thank you so
Thank you so much, sir.
Next,
And next we will proceed to the second session, and we have 4 questions.
So,
So,
first
the
question,
first question,
have you
have you experienced any negative experience before, during, and after you've learned about second language acquisition?
Yes.
If yes,
Share your
can you share your experience, and if no, why?
I think is my behavior is not shame, and I think to learn a second language you need to try make it all a lot of wrongs, and if you have a shame you can't to do something about the exercise. For example, if you need to speak how is your day for your colleague, and if you have this attitude, you can to test if you really know or to understand the creative and prove that. And I think it's just positive thing because I think all experience is positive. Is same if I made some mistakes or wrongs. I think it's a positive. Then I think it's just positive experience.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
For the next
For the
question,
next question,
what method
what method
help you
helped you before, during,
and after
and after learning about second language acquisition?
Okay. Do you know New English File books? Do you know these books?
Again, sir.
Do you have a New English File? Do you know what's that? New English File books? No?
Don't have.
Don't
In
have,
Brazil,
sir.
we have this approach, and this is very nice. They have a lot of tests you can argue, and I learn English using that methods. My teacher is a great person, is a great teacher, and I think is the principal method is use the creative because they can use the exercise with different forms of the approach. That's so nice.
So, for the
For the third question,
have you ever
have you ever tried
grammar
grammar translation method while teaching second language?
If yes,
If
why?
yes, why? And if no, why?
No, because using these methods, teachers of different of class subjects as this publication, you can't use that. It's necessary you use chunks and scaffolds, but grammar translations we don't use it.
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir.
Next
The
question.
next question is, have you tried the audiolingual method in teaching second language?
If yes,
If yes,
and if
why?
no,
And if no, why?
I just using in a test, in a assessment, and I recorded some questions, and the students listen and answer from me that questions, and I use that.
Thank you, sir.
So for the last question that we have,
what
what are the communicative approaches you've used before, during, and after you've learned second language acquisition?
I use it a lot of. As I said that before, my teacher use games, using Kahoot, using tests, using to some books, which in my level, because I think it's Shakespeare. I don't remember the name of the Romeo and Julieta. I think so, and I think it's very memorable for me because I can read that book without using dictionary. I think it's we can to use a positive experience for wow, I can't understand that. I think it's special.
Okay, sir, thank
Okay,
you
sir,
very much.
thank you very much
For helping us
for helping us in our subject. Thank you, and
We will assure that
we will
your
assure that your answers will be kept confidential.
Sir,
And
this
sir, this is the end of our first and second session.
We will just
We will just chat you for the third and fourth session, and we will chat you for your availability.
maybe next month.
Maybe next month. So sir, can we please take a picture
Together.
together?
So, sir, smile.
Smile.
Okay. Thank you so much,
Thank you so much, sir. Happy birthday again. Happy birthday again, sir. Thank you very much.
Bye.
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 We were unable to record the entire duration of the third and fourth parts of the interview session due to an inconsistent internet connection. We shall simply present his responses from our notes.
What is language acquisition for you and why?
Language acquisition, according to him, is the process by which we naturally hear, read, and use a language. According to Mr. James, when we speak English, we can open our minds, which he thinks is great idea because when he studies his main language, which is Portuguese, he has more difficulty, but when he speaks English, he learns more.
What learning and acquisition techniques have you used in teaching second language? Can you cite a real-life scenario?
He implements language teaching by implementing the Teach Knowledge test course. What are the acquisition barriers you have encountered in teaching English?
His acquisition barriers are related to teaching math. He has difficulty communicating with his math students in using English as a medium.
How did you remove the barriers before, while, and after teaching English? Can you recall the time?
Bravely use English. If a person lacks of social skills, they won't hold you responsible for language errors you make. Have you experienced any negative experiences before, during, and after you've learned about second language acquisition? If yes, can you share your experience? If not, why?
He gave us an illustration, saying that in front of his students, he might say the word shot. Now, his students won't know what kind of shot he is talking about. Before his student can understand what he is talking about, he must use the word shot in a sentence.
What methods helped you before, during, and after learning about second language acquisition?
He gave us a brief overview of the book New English 5. He used the New English 5 book as a method to learn English. He claims that this book contains a variety of evaluations. The exercises and tasks in the New English 5 textbook are creative. This book uses English as its primary language.
Have you ever tried the grammar translation method while teaching a second language? If yes, why? If no, why?
He said no, because he uses word chunks or groups that are common in language. They can be words that frequently go together, such as certain grammatical structures that adhere to rules, or words that always go together, such as fixed collocations.
Have you tried the audio-lingual method in teaching a second language? If yes, why? If no, why?
Mr. James said yes, he is making an assessment. Instead of memorizing grammar rules, students will learn through examples, and teachers will assess whether the examples students are given are accurate. When students repeat the words, teachers will analyze how well they pronounce the words.
What communicative approaches have you used before, during, and after you've learned second language acquisition?
He is using a communicative approach when reading works by William Shakespeare, such as Romeo and Juliet, in order to fill in the gaps. Using a dictionary to look up unfamiliar words is one of the examples. His vocabulary has grown after learning the definition of the specific word.
As an educator of the second language, how do you ensure the focus of your learner or learners? Can you share some techniques or strategies?
Through the use of assessment, he can measure his learners' capabilities regarding on what he teaches to them. Some techniques he'll share is doing motivational stuff. For example, applying the lesson on everyday life and see if it will works.
How do you transfer your learnings of the second language to your students other than the teaching process you usually do?
Other than his teaching process, he can teach his learners the second language through incorporating culture on lesson because he don't usually do it because sometimes teaching culture can be really hard when there are so many things to navigate.
As a foreign educator and teacher of the second language or foreign language, how will you define interlanguage?
For him, it is all about how a speaker deliver a message in different process or techniques as long as the listener can comprehend it easily.
Are you familiar with fossilization in language acquisition? If yes, how will you define it? Can you cite experience where you've used it? If no, skip this.
Fossilization refers to the process in which incorrect language becomes a habit and cannot easily be corrected. Teachers can help learners to notice their fossilized errors by, for example, recording them speaking or by asking them to keep a record of written errors as part of a language portfolio.
How do you motivate your learners to learn a second language? Your best practices or techniques in doing this motivation?
By simply considering his learner's passion and hobbies to learn a second language.
How do you explain input and output to your second language learners? Can you cite some examples or time in your teaching experience?
The idea that he have said, the more comprehensible input you expose yourself through reading and listening, the more of that language you will learn. Listening practice can even improve your speaking skills. Output, on the other hand, assists us in recognizing specific types of language. It directs our attention to problem areas and encourages us to pay closer attention to feedback. So, in essence, they both serve a purpose. It's also more accurate to think of input as the first step on the way to output.
How do you measure the following competence from your second language learners? A. Grammatical competence. B. Social-linguistic competence. C. Strategic competence.
According to him, it's all about knowing how to use a language grammar, syntax, and vocabulary. It inquires as to what words he employs.
Social linguistic means being aware of the following: social rules of language, nonverbal behaviors, and cultural references. It also means knowing how to use and respond to language appropriately, given the setting, the topic, and the relationships among the people communicating.
Language barriers can be overcome using this method, which is also used to plan and evaluate communication efforts, develop conversational fluency, and modify text for different audiences and purposes. In addition to teaching, second language learners help to identify and fix communication problems. It also helps them learn more about the language and its context. Let us empower our teachers to become better English teachers.
They can speak, but speaking is not the same as teaching. Increase teacher training under the supervision of competent individuals to ensure the quality of English education for second language learners.